South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem just shows us that South Dakota is not sending its best because their very own governor on national television revealed that she either doesn't know what infrastructure means or didn't take the time to read Joe Biden's infrastructure proposal, something that we detailed in a lengthy video just yesterday. Now, she was on Sean Hannity's show on Fox News, and here's what she had to say about Biden's proposal.
I was on a call with the White House today with all the governors talking about the specifics of this package. And I was shocked by how much doesn't go into infrastructure. It goes into research and development. It goes into housing and pipes and different initiatives, green energy.
Housing and pipes and infrastructure. Also, research and development. I mean, I'm surprised that she's like speaking out against research and development because more often than not, in the context of the United States, research and development is nothing more than corporate welfare. It's investors refusing to actually be risky with their investment, therefore leaving some of the innovation to be funded by us, the US taxpayers. And then in the context of like pharmaceutical companies, they'll turn around, they'll price gouge the very people who funded their research and development. But in this case, the research and development has to do with infrastructure, you moron, okay? But Farron, before I bring you in, I wanted to just detail exactly what the proposal indicates, where the money would be spent. And I don't know, maybe we need to spend some time defining infrastructure for someone who's literally the governor of an entire state. So it proposes $180 billion for research and development. Yes, that research and development has to do with infrastructure. $115 billion for roads and bridges. Roads and bridges are part of infrastructure. $85 billion for public transit. Again, that's infrastructure. $80 billion for Amtrak and freight rail, infrastructure. $42 billion for ports and airports, that's also infrastructure. $100 billion for broadband, which is incredibly important, by the way, for rural communities. This would mostly be focused on rural communities that do not have internet access right now. And $111 billion for water. The word's in there for you, Kristi. Water infrastructure. But Farron, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
I think another way to say all this too, that's maybe not as challenging as the word infrastructure for her, is that jobs, right? Yeah. Every single one of those numbers, every single thing on that list is jobs. And isn't that the goal? Isn't that kind of the thing we've been trying to work towards, getting people employed? The Green New Deal itself, which I know bits and pieces or concepts from it are a part of this. It's jobs. It's putting people to work, building this new energy infrastructure. And sure, look, it's certainly not as bold as we need it to be, but obviously better than not doing it at all. So we're going to get some kind of green energy framework that is going to be a great stepping point, and it's going to be continuously built upon. So these are long-term investments, not necessarily in just infrastructure, but in people. And I think that's the way that we really have to start looking at it. And that's the way, by the way, the Democratic Party is gonna have to sell this come midterms. And I think that's why it is so important that they're doing this so early, so that by the time the 2022 midterms roll around, hopefully we can have some of these projects underway. We can see people being put back to work. That is a major selling point. And I think what Republicans are trying to do at the moment, like Noem there, she knows what infrastructure is, but she is grasping at straws to try to convince the public that, look how stupid it is. Your neighbor might have new pipes. No, she doesn't like the corporate tax hikes, but she can't necessarily say that. So she has to frame it. Did she?
She did frame it.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
So she framed it in the way that you would expect Republican lawmakers to frame the tax hikes, because as we have shared with you in detailed ways on numerous occasions, the proposal here is increasing taxes on the rich, those making more than $400,000 a year. And also he's increasing the corporate tax rate from 21% to 28%, but the corporate tax rate still wouldn't be as high as it was prior to the Trump administration cutting taxes for the rich. That was when the corporate tax rate was 35%. But with that said, you're about to hear South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem lied to the American people about what this infrastructure bill would actually do to their taxes.
That in spite of saying that only the rich are going to pay and these evil corporations pay, I argue this will be paid for by the average American person. Doesn't matter how much you make.
That's right. You're exactly right, Sean. Every single family will pay the price for what Joe Biden's agenda is. He will drive up the cost of the food and their grocery bill. He will drive up the cost of their utilities, their gas prices, the cost of their cars, the clothes they dress their children in. Everything that they do each and every day will be more expensive. Their budgets will be tighter because they'll be earning less, and it'll be directly because of these policies and these tax increases that Joe Biden is embracing and pushing through Congress.
I mean, I don't know why she didn't just go further. Your home will spontaneously combust, your children's heads will melt. Like, stupid. Like, no rhyme, no reason, no logic, no evidence provided, just absolute garbage meant to lie to the American people. So they literally rally against legislation that would improve the infrastructure of this country by employing Americans, literally millions of Americans, with these infrastructure related jobs. I mean, just absolute garbage person.
You know, I also love how she said it's only going to increase the cost of the price of clothes for your kids. So I guess grown-up clothes, like we're okay. But if you got to buy stuff for your kids, that stuff's going to get more expensive. But no, it's ridiculous, and it is so funny to watch this. If it would be funnier if it weren't so terrifying, because you know that there's a good portion of that audience that is looking at that and saying, "Oh my, hey, they gonna raise our taxes? They ain't gonna do it." And it's crazy, and I know, and I see it around here. You know, this deep red district that I am in, you hear these conversations, you see it on the Facebook pages. I literally see it on the Facebook pages of the people that live around me. You know, they were whining about Biden getting rid of the Keystone XL pipeline, saying there goes all these American jobs. And it's no, you're being brainwashed, you're being hoodwinked by these conservative media outlets, but they refuse to step out of the bubble. So her little talking points there's people that believe it, and now that it's in their heads, it's stuck, it's there. Nothing will convince them otherwise. I think even if Sean Hannity admitted they were lying, they would still think, nah, something's up. He means that. So I don't know, but push forward with the plan, because it is going to help, and it's going to put us on a path that's going to get us to a better place in the future.
You know, look, I hate that conservative voters are being lied to. And so we cover these stories with the hope that maybe some of them will come across the content. Maybe they'll consider, based on what we're saying, to do research on their own, right? But I also want to be clear about one other thing. If they refuse to do that, then I don't care, and Democrats in office shouldn't care either. And I say that because, like, there should be zero waste of time in getting this passed. Okay, get it passed through reconciliation, go bold, don't even waste your time negotiating with these clowns, these Republican millionaire clowns in Congress who are worried about their goddamn taxes going up. They're not worried about your taxes going up. They're not worried about you at all, but they're worried about having to pay a little bit more because they've got a tremendous amount of wealth. They have their own little side hustles and their side businesses, especially even Democratic Senator Joe Manchin with his like hotel business situation happening behind the scenes. They're looking out to protect their best interests. But Democrats need to play hardball and understand that if the tables were turned, if we were, actually, they don't even have to think that far back. When it came to tax cuts for the rich, Republicans had no problem passing that through reconciliation in the Senate. So they do need to move forward. I do hope that our conservative friends open their minds up to something that could actually be incredibly beneficial to their lives and their finances. But if they're not open to it, sad day for you. You guys voted for a party that's deeply unpopular, even with all the election rigging that they try to take, or I shouldn't say rigging, but with all of the structural changes that were taking place, with the post office and everything that conservatives were putting out there with misinformation about the election, they still lost because they're unpopular. They're unpopular for a reason. And it's because they continue to protect the wealth and the prosperity of the 1% while everyone else is fighting for scraps. So I would have liked Biden's proposal to go much further. And that's my biggest complaint about it. But other than that, if this is what he's willing to propose, it will be beneficial to the vast majority of Americans by improving the infrastructure, by providing jobs. And one other point that I want to just quickly make, Farron, it's just the contradiction of these profit-driven morons, right? Who on one hand are like, oh, China, they're beating us, China's beating us, yeah, China is beating us. Pretty soon China will be more powerful than the United States is, and they're terrified about that. But China knows how to invest, right? We have a crumbling infrastructure which has a negative impact on the economy, you losers, you goddamn morons, okay? So what do you want? Do you want the United States to fall behind? Do you want our infrastructure to be crumbling? Or do you want to actually do something about it? And of course, we know what the answer is. The answer is they want to maintain their profits, they want to maintain their low tax rates, and they don't want to pay their fair share. That's why they're in office. They're not in office to represent you. They're in office to represent their own financial situation.
Right, and this is a program, this is a proposal from the Biden administration that would provide material benefits to the American public. And those kinds of things always resonate very well with voters. When you get the material benefits, it's harder to accept the lies coming from the other side. Kind of like with the tax cuts too. Republicans told us immediately, hey, you're gonna get so much more money in your paycheck. Here it comes, get ready for it. And then everybody looked at their own paychecks and said, wait a minute, that didn't happen. So when you can look and see that something definitely doesn't happen or something definitely does happen, that has an impact. That's why we did see a pretty significant public shift on the tax issue, because at the time there was a good amount of people who said, no, we have to cut the taxes. But that shifted really quick when they looked at their paychecks every other week and said, hold up, I have no difference. There's nothing that is benefiting me, but all these corporations, and now they're doing layoffs. It was horrible for Republicans, and this would be the same thing. We can raise taxes on the wealthy. We can use that to pay for these material benefits, to create jobs, good, government jobs that are gonna give you benefits too. And Republicans are terrified of watching that come to fruition because the voters are gonna remember that in 2022.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.